She was about to leave the wedding unseen, until a billionaire's whisper bound her to him, "Pretend you're with me." One lie, and her quiet night became the start of a dangerous love triangle. Hi, my beautiful family. Thank you for sticking around with me. If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. The ballroom shimmered with gold. Chandeliers spilled light onto white roses, champagne glasses, and designer gowns. Couples leaned into each other, laughter blending with the rhythm of the live band. Every corner of the room glowed with romance. Except hers. Althea Morgan sat alone at a round table dressed in silk. Her emerald dress hugged her figure, her curls bouncing softly against her shoulders. She looked like she belonged in the spotlight, but she had chosen the shadows, tucked away at the edge of a celebration that didn't feel like hers. Her cousin, the bride, was radiant at the center of the room. Other relatives flitted around in sequin dresses and sharp suits, too busy basking in joy to notice the woman sitting alone. Althea traced the rim of her untouched wine glass. She smiled when waiters passed, but the smile never reached her eyes. She had grown used to this, the feeling of being both present and invisible. The MC, tall and theatrical, strode across the stage with a grin wide enough to swallow the mic. His voice boomed over the music. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight isn't just about the bride and groom. Tonight is about love. Let's add some spice. Everyone, turn to your partner, look into their eyes, and whisper something sweet." The room erupted in laughter and cheers. Couples turned to each other, giggling, whispering, leaning close. One woman blushed as her husband kissed her hand. Another couple clasped foreheads, smiling like teenagers in love. At Althea's table, pairs turned toward each other in unison. Except her. Heat crawled up her neck. Her chair suddenly felt like a spotlight, exposing her solitude. Her throat tightened, her chest heavy with shame. She reached for her purse, eyes fixed on the glowing exit sign across the ballroom. If she left now, no one would notice. No one ever did. She rose halfway from her chair. "Don't move," a low voice murmured at her ear. She froze. A tall man in a midnight black suit slipped into the empty seat beside her as if it had always belonged to him. His presence filled the air instantly. Broad shoulders, sharp jawline, eyes dark and arresting. Before she could react, his hand covered hers, firm and steady. "Pretend you're with me," he whispered, lips barely moving. Althea's pulse pounded in her ears. "Excuse me," she breathed. "Smile," he said smoothly. "They're watching." She darted a glance around the table. Guests had already noticed. A woman at the far end gasped softly, her eyes widening. "Isn't that Daniel Kingston?" The name cracked like thunder in her mind. Daniel Kingston. Billionaire. U.S. business mogul. A man whose face graced Forbes covers, whose ruthless deals built empires and destroyed rivals. He was untouchable, unapproachable, a force everyone in the business world knew by name. And now he was here, his hand wrapped around hers as though she were someone who mattered. Althea's lips parted in disbelief. "Why me?" Before she could whisper the question, the MC's booming voice rolled across the room again. He had spotted them. "Ah, our newest couple. Don't be shy now, you two, show us some love." Applause and laughter swelled. All eyes turned to them. Althea's chest tightened. Her mouth went dry. Daniel's gaze locked onto hers, dark and commanding. "Look at me," he murmured, low enough for only her to hear. She blinked rapidly, panic bubbling in her chest. "Please," he added softer, his voice threaded with something unguarded. "Just play along." The room quieted, waiting. Daniel lifted her hand slowly, deliberately, and pressed his lips against her knuckles. His eyes never left hers. "I've never met a woman," he said, voice smooth, rich, meant for everyone listening, whose silence speaks louder than words. Tonight, she's the reason this room feels alive. Gasps. Soft sighs. A wave of applause. Even the MC placed a hand over his chest. Now that's love, ladies and gentlemen. The crowd laughed, enchanted. The moment passed, but Althea's heart thundered like a drum. What just happened? Why would a man like Daniel Kingston, untouchable billionaire, choose her to play this part? Before she could gather her thoughts, a voice sliced through the music like glass shattering. Well, it drawled, sharp and venomous. Isn't this sweet? The ballroom hushed. An elegant woman in a crimson gown strode forward, her heels clicking like daggers against the marble floor. Her dark hair glimmered under the chandeliers, her diamond earrings flashing. She stopped in front of their table, her smile cold, her eyes locked on Daniel. "Funny," she said, her voice carrying, "because last week you told me I was the one you'd be introducing as your future wife." Gasps rippled across the ballroom. Phones rose, flashes bursting. Althea's stomach dropped. Her hand went limp in Daniel's, but he held tighter, his grip like iron. His jaw clenched, his smile fixed for the audience. "Not here," he muttered under his breath, his words for her alone. His eyes, however, stayed locked on the woman in red. Althea's skin prickled with dread. Just minutes ago, she had been invisible. Now she was at the center of a scandal that wasn't hers, bound to a man with secrets written all over his dangerous smile. And every eye in the room was watching. Have you ever been thrown into the spotlight when all you wanted was to stay unseen? Imagine being in Althea's shoes tonight. Would you have played along with Daniel's game, or walked away? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The silence that followed was sharper than any music. Eyes darted between Daniel, the woman in crimson, and Althea. The ballroom, once buzzing with laughter, now hummed with whispers. Althea wanted to vanish, to sink into the floor and slip out unnoticed. But Daniel's grip pinned her to the moment, his jaw tight, his smile practiced for the audience. The woman in crimson folded her arms, her lips curving into a predator's smile. "Cat got your tongue, Daniel? Or are you finally running out of excuses?" Daniel rose slowly, pulling Althea up with him. His posture was commanding, calculated, the posture of a man who knew cameras were flashing. "This isn't the time, Vanessa." His voice was low, measured, laced with a warning. "Not the time." Vanessa's laugh rang brittle and sharp. "Oh, I think it's exactly the time. Everyone should know what kind of man you really are." Althea's chest constricted. She wasn't sure which burned more, the eyes boring into her back, or the heat of Daniel's hand wrapped around hers like a shackle. She whispered urgently, "Let go of me. This isn't my fight." Daniel bent slightly, his mouth near her ear, his tone steel. "If you walk away now, you'll give her exactly what she wants. Trust me." Trust him? A stranger? A billionaire whose name carried both reverence and fear? Her pulse screamed no, but her feet refused to move. The MC, desperate to save the moment, clapped his hands nervously. "All right, folks, let's get the music back up. Give it up for our happy couple here, and let's celebrate the bride and groom." The band picked up a tune, guests clapped awkwardly, and the crowd began to shift, though whispers still trailed like smoke. Vanessa's glare lingered a moment longer before she turned sharply, her crimson gown swishing as she disappeared into the crowd. Althea exhaled shakily. "Happy couple?" Her voice trembled with disbelief. "Are you insane? Why did you?" Daniel leaned closer, his eyes dark with urgency. "Not here. Dance with me." Her breath caught. Dance. If you want to survive this without every person in this room ripping you apart with their questions, yes, dance. Before she could protest, he guided her onto the dance floor. The crowd made space, murmurs rising as the band shifted to a slow, sultry tune. Daniel pulled her gently but firmly into his arms, one hand on her waist, the other still clutching hers. Althea's body stiffened. "You've lost your mind," she whispered fiercely. "I don't know you, and I don't want to be part of your, whatever this is." His eyes bore into hers, unflinching. "You already are." Her lips parted, anger mixing with panic. "I didn't agree to this." Daniel's expression softened, barely, but enough for her to notice. "You think I planned this? Vanessa wasn't supposed to be here tonight." Vanessa. Her stomach twisted at the name. So she is telling the truth. His jaw flexed, his gaze flicking past her to the watching crowd before returning. "Not in the way she wants you to believe." "Then in what way?" Daniel was silent for a long moment, his grip firm but his movements surprisingly gentle as he guided her across the floor. "She wants something I'll never give her. Tonight, she saw her chance to corner me." "And you used me to cover it," Althea whispered, her voice breaking. The truth stung sharper than she wanted to admit. Daniel's lips pressed into a line. "I used your presence, yes. But don't mistake me, Althea." Her breath hitched. "You know my name?" "Of course I do." His voice was low, almost tender, yet it carried weight. "I don't sit at a stranger's table by accident." Her skin prickled. "What are you talking about?" Before he could answer, applause rippled from the other side of the ballroom. The bride and groom had returned to the floor, their dance stealing the attention back. The crowd slowly turned toward them, and the heavy eyes on Daniel and Althea eased. Althea took her chance, pulling slightly away. "I need air," she muttered. Daniel's grip loosened, but only barely. "Fine. Outside. But you're not walking away from me yet." The terrace doors opened onto cool night air. Fairy lights twinkled across the balcony railing, casting soft glows over the gardens below. The muffled hum of the party leaked through the glass doors. Althea wrapped her arms around herself, shivering, not from the chill, but from the chaos unraveling around her. She turned sharply on him. "Who do you think you are? You waltz in, sit beside me, take my hand, drag me into your mess." "I saved you," he cut in. His voice was calm, but his eyes were fire. "Saved me." She let out a bitter laugh. "From what? From sitting alone at a wedding? I've done that my whole life." Daniel stepped closer, the space between them charged. "No. I saved you from being seen as the lonely cousin everyone pities. I gave them a reason to look at you differently. Strong. Desired." Althea's chest ached. The words hit harder than she wanted to admit. "You don't know me," she whispered. His gaze softened, searching her face. "Then let me." Her heart stuttered. She wanted to hate him. She wanted to walk back inside, grab her things, and vanish from his orbit. But something in his eyes, something broken, hidden under all that power, pinned her in place. "Why me?" she asked again, voice trembling. Daniel's jaw tightened. For the first time, he looked away, staring into the night. "Because sometimes," he said quietly, "a stranger is the only one who can save you." Althea's lips parted, a thousand questions surging, but before she could speak, the terrace door opened. The crimson gown appeared again. "Daniel," Vanessa purred, her eyes narrowing at Althea before sliding back to him. "You can't hide her forever. The world will know the truth." Daniel's arm brushed against Althea's, protective, unyielding. "The world will know exactly what I wanted to know," he said coldly. Althea's pulse spiked. For the first time, she realized this wasn't just a dance or a lie. She was standing in the middle of a power game far bigger than herself. And whether she liked it or not, Daniel Kingston had just written her into it. At this point, do you think Daniel is really protecting Althea, or just using her to cover his own scandal? If you were Althea, would you run, or stay to find out his secrets? Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear from you. The night air pressed heavy between them. Fairy lights flickered across the terrace like silent witnesses, but Althea's chest felt trapped. She pulled her hand from Daniel's grip at last, her voice sharp. Enough. Whatever this game is, I don't want any part of it. Daniel's jaw clenched, the smooth charm from moments ago cracking into something raw. This isn't a game, Althea. She laughed bitterly, though the sound caught in her throat. Really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you just dragged me into the middle of your public circus to save face. Do you realize what you've done? People are staring, whispering, already recording. My family is inside. Do you think I want this kind of attention? Daniel stepped closer, his shadow swallowing hers. His voice lowered to a dangerous calm. Attention can destroy, or it can protect. Tonight, it protected you. Her eyes widened, heart stammering. Protect me? From what? He paused, searching her face as though weighing what she could handle. Finally, his tone softened, almost reluctant. Vanessa. Althea frowned. What does she have to do with me? Daniel exhaled through his nose, a fleeting moment of vulnerability flashing across his face. Vanessa isn't just a jealous ex. She's dangerous, ambitious. And when she saw you at that table, she saw a weakness she could exploit. Althea stiffened. So you're saying she'll come after me, just because you sat down beside me? Yes. His eyes burned with conviction. And because I didn't deny her claim. That makes you a target now. Her pulse roared in her ears. She took a step back. Then all the more reason for me to leave. I'm not staying here to play your shield. Daniel's gaze darkened, his voice rougher now. Walk away. And she wins. She'll spin you as a pawn, humiliate you, maybe worse. Stay close to me, and she can't touch you. Althea shook her head, her curls brushing against her cheeks. You think because you're powerful, you can just decide what's best for me? I've lived my whole life invisible, Daniel. Maybe it's lonely, but at least it's safe. I don't need saving. For the first time, Daniel's mask cracked. Not anger, but pain flickered in his eyes. Don't lie to me. I saw you tonight, before I sat down. You were ready to leave, weren't you? Her lips parted, stung by the truth. That doesn't mean I wanted you to rescue me. Maybe not. His voice softened, almost breaking. But sometimes we don't get to choose who pulls us out of the dark. The terrace door creaked again. Althea's heart sank. Vanessa. Her crimson gown swayed as she leaned against the frame, smirking like she owned the night. Oh, don't stop on my account. I'm enjoying this little love story. Althea's stomach twisted. I'm leaving. Daniel moved instinctively, placing himself between them. You're not touching her, Vanessa. Vanessa's laugh dripped with venom. Touch her? Darling, I don't need to touch her. The press already has their story. Poor little nobody catches Daniel Kingston's eye. But don't worry, I'll make sure they add the part where you used her to get rid of me. Althea's chest constricted. The words struck harder than she wanted to admit. Wasn't that exactly what had happened? Her voice trembled, but she forced it out. Daniel, is she right? The world seemed to freeze in that question. Daniel's face hardened, his silence louder than denial. Althea's throat tightened. Her heart cracked under the weight of that silence. She didn't wait for an answer. She turned, pushing past both of them, heels clicking hard against the marble floor as she vanished down the corridor. For the first time, Daniel Kingston looked shaken, and Vanessa's smile widened. The hotel lobby was a blur of marble floors, velvet chairs, and curious glances as Althea stormed through. She clutched her purse tightly, her heels striking the ground in furious rhythm. Her cousin's wedding was still unfolding upstairs, but she couldn't breathe in there anymore, not with Daniel's silence echoing in her chest, not with Vanessa's poisonous words clinging to her skin. She pushed through the glass doors into the humid night. A taxi idled by the curb. Relief swept through her as she yanked open the door. "Airport," she muttered. The driver nodded. But just as she slid into the seat, the door slammed shut from the outside. Althea gasped. Daniel Kingston stood there, his hand firm on the handle, his expression unreadable under the glow of the streetlights. "Out," he ordered the driver, his tone brooking no refusal. The driver hesitated only a second before Daniel's presence, that aura of authority, made him obey. The man stepped out, muttering an apology, leaving Althea and Daniel alone in the back seat. Her chest heaved. "What are you doing? You can't just—" "Yes, I can." His voice was low, edged with urgency. "And right now, I don't have the luxury of letting you go." She shoved at his shoulder. "You don't own me, Daniel. You don't get to decide where I stay or go." His jaw clenched, but his tone softened. "If I let you leave tonight, you'll regret it. Vanessa won't stop. She thrives on destruction. And once she sets her sights on someone, it doesn't end well." Althea's pulse raced. "Why should I believe you? You couldn't even answer me when I asked if you were using me." Daniel's gaze faltered, shadows flickering in his eyes. "Because the truth isn't something I can say out loud in a ballroom full of cameras." "Then say it now." Her voice cracked. "Say I wasn't just a shield. Say you didn't choose me because I was convenient." Silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Finally, he leaned closer, his voice raw. "I chose you because the moment I saw you, I couldn't look away." Althea froze. The words hung between them, fragile and dangerous. Before she could respond, Daniel rapped on the window. The driver returned reluctantly, and Daniel instructed, "Take us to the Kingston Tower." Her head snapped toward him. "What? No. I'm not going anywhere with you." "You are," he said firmly. "Because it's the only place she can't reach you tonight." "Daniel, this is insane." He met her gaze, unflinching. "You don't have to trust me. Just trust that I won't let her destroy you." The car pulled into motion. City lights streaked past the windows, painting her reflection with fragments of gold and shadow. Althea sat rigid, her thoughts spinning, torn between fear and the strange pull in her chest every time his eyes softened toward her. Minutes later, the car rolled to a stop in front of a towering glass skyscraper that seemed to scrape the clouds. Kingston Tower, his empire carved into steel and light. Inside, the lobby was all polished stone and hushed luxury. Security guards bowed their heads as Daniel passed, and staff scattered like leaves before the wind. Althea trailed reluctantly behind him, her heels echoing in the cavernous space. The elevator ride felt endless, the silence thick with unspoken questions. When the doors opened, they stepped into a penthouse bathed in floor-to-ceiling windows. The city sprawled beneath them like a sea of stars. Althea's breath caught despite herself. Daniel turned to face her. For once, he looked less like the untouchable mogul and more like a man carrying too many battles. "You're safe here," he said quietly. She crossed her arms, keeping distance between them. "Safe or trapped?" His lips curved faintly, though sadness lingered in his eyes. "That depends on whether you leave when the sun rises." Althea's chest tightened. The walls between them weren't built of steel or glass. They were built of mistrust, secrets, and something deeper neither of them dared name. But for tonight, fate had forced her into his world. And for the first time, she wondered if walking away would truly set her free, or break something inside her she didn't yet understand. If you were Althea, would you stay in Daniel's penthouse for the night, or demand to be taken home no matter the risk? Do you think safety with him is worth the secrets he's hiding? Share your thoughts in the comments. The penthouse was eerily quiet. Althea wandered toward the windows, her reflection caught between glass and night sky. From this height, the city looked unreal, as if the world below couldn't touch them. But she felt anything but untouchable. Behind her, Daniel poured 2 glasses of water. Not champagne, not whiskey. Water. It struck her as strange, a man of excess offering the simplest thing. "Here," he said softly, holding it out. She hesitated before accepting. Their fingers brushed, and she felt the faintest tremor in his hand. It unsettled her more than his power. She took a sip, then set the glass down. "Why me, Daniel? Don't tell me it was just instinct. Men like you don't act on instinct." His jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he'd deflect. But instead, he sat across from her, his eyes shadowed. "When I was 17, he began slowly, I thought I was invincible. My father was grooming me to take over the company. I lived like rules didn't apply. One night, I drove too fast. Too drunk." Althea's breath hitched at the rawness in his tone. There was a crash. "My best friend, Michael, was in the car. He didn't survive." Daniel's voice broke on the last word, though he forced himself to continue. "The media buried it. My father paid them off. But I never forgot. I never stopped hearing the sound of glass shattering, or his mother's scream when she found out." Althea's heart clenched. She'd expected arrogance, excuses, not this. He looked up, his eyes burning. "Vanessa was there that night. She's the only one who knows the truth. She's held it over me for years. That's why she thinks she owns me. Why I can't let her spin her games with you." Althea pressed a hand to her mouth. The weight of his confession sank into her bones. "You've been living under her thumb all this time." He gave a humorless laugh. "Power doesn't always free you. Sometimes it chains you tighter." The silence stretched between them, heavy with secrets. Finally, Althea whispered, "Do you know why I came tonight? Why I sat at that table alone?" Daniel tilted his head, curious. "It was supposed to be my sister's wedding," she said, her voice trembling. "But 2 weeks ago, she called it off. Said she couldn't go through with it. My cousin stepped in to take the date, the venue, everything. My family begged me to come anyway, to show support. But all night, all I could think about was how love crumbled right in front of me. How something that looked so perfect could just fall apart." Her eyes blurred. She swallowed hard. "So I sat alone. Because I didn't want to look anyone in the eye and feel that ache reflected back at me." Daniel leaned forward, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. "And yet, you still came. Even in pain, you showed up. That's strength, Althea. Not weakness." Tears pricked her lashes. She hated how much his words reached her, how they touched the raw wound she'd hidden behind her pride. He reached across the table, his hand hovering, not touching. An offering, not a demand. But before she could decide whether to take it, a shrill buzz echoed through the penthouse. Daniel's phone lit up on the counter. A single name glared across the screen. Vanessa. Althea's chest tightened. Daniel's jaw hardened as he silenced the call, but the tension in his shoulders betrayed him. "See," Althea whispered, standing abruptly. "No matter what you tell me, she still owns a piece of you. And I'm not sure I want to be dragged into that war." Daniel rose too, desperation flickering in his eyes. "Althea, listen." But she had already turned toward the window, pressing her hands to the glass as though the city lights could steady her racing heart. Because for the first time, she wasn't sure if she was afraid of Vanessa's shadow, or of how much she wanted to believe Daniel's broken truths. If someone revealed a painful secret like Daniel's to you, would it make you trust them more, or push you further away? Could you forgive someone whose past still holds dangerous ties? Let me know in the comments. The silence in the penthouse lingered long after Vanessa's call had ended. Althea stood by the window, watching the city like it could offer her answers. She didn't hear Daniel approach, not until he was close enough that she caught the quiet rhythm of his breathing. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "For all of it. For pulling you into this mess. For not answering when you needed me to. For making you doubt yourself." She didn't turn. You should be apologizing to Michael's mother. To the boy you lost. Not to me. A shadow of grief passed over his face, though she couldn't see it. I already did. Every day since it happened. The raw honesty in his tone tugged at her. Against her will, she turned. Daniel stood with his hands in his pockets, his shoulders lowered, stripped of the armor he wore in public. He looked human, haunted, vulnerable. And for the first time, she didn't just see the mogul. She saw the boy who'd made one mistake that had cost him everything. Althea sighed and sank onto the couch. You make it very hard to hate you, you know. He allowed the faintest smile. I'll take that as progress. She rolled her eyes, but the tension in her chest loosened. You're impossible. He sat beside her, careful not to crowd her. Maybe. But I'd rather be impossible than let you walk away thinking you were nothing but a pawn. Silence settled, softer this time. Althea traced the rim of her glass with her finger, her voice low. Do you want to know why I stayed? Why I didn't push harder to leave when you dragged me into that car? Daniel tilted his head. Why? She hesitated, then met his gaze. Because, for the first time in a long time, I felt like someone saw me. Not the girl who hides at weddings. Not the sister of the runaway bride. Me. Her voice cracked on the last word. She bit her lip, embarrassed, but Daniel's eyes softened in a way that made her heart ache. Althea, he whispered. Her name on his tongue felt different. Like a promise. A fragile warmth bloomed between them, cutting through the shadows. Daniel leaned back, his gaze drifting toward the windows. Do you know what I miss most? Silence. Real silence. No phones buzzing. No boardrooms. No Vanessa. Just stillness. She smiled faintly. Like Jamaica at dawn. Before the streets wake up, before the market noise. Just the sound of the ocean breathing. He turned, surprised. You grew up by the ocean? She nodded, eyes misting with memory. Every morning, I'd sit by the shore with my grandmother. She used to say the sea carried away our burdens if we gave them to it. Daniel studied her, captivated. And did it. Sometimes, she said softly. But it always brought them back if you weren't ready to let go. For a long moment, neither spoke. The city glittered beneath them, but here in this cocoon of glass and quiet, it felt like the world had stilled. Then, unexpectedly, Althea laughed. A small, unguarded laugh that startled them both. What's funny? Daniel asked, bemused. She shook her head, grinning through her tears. You. Me. This whole insane night. I mean, who gets dragged into a billionaire's penthouse because his ex is jealous? Daniel chuckled, the sound low and warm. Apparently you do. Their laughter mingled, fragile but real. For the first time, the weight of the night lifted, replaced by something that felt almost like hope. And in that moment, Althea let herself imagine, just for a heartbeat, that maybe this dangerous, complicated man wasn't her undoing. Maybe he was the unexpected place where healing began. But hope is a fragile thing. And outside the penthouse walls, Vanessa's shadow grew longer. The penthouse was quiet again, too quiet. Althea had fallen asleep on the couch, exhaustion tugging her into dreams. Daniel had draped a throw over her shoulders and retreated to his office, unable to rest. But peace never lasts. At 2 a.m., the silence shattered with a sharp buzz, his phone vibrating against the glass desk. The name on the screen made his stomach sink. Vanessa. He almost ignored it. Almost. But then a message lit up, one line that made his blood run cold. If you won't come to me, I'll come to her. Daniel's chest tightened. He stormed out of the office, every muscle tense. He needed to move Althea, to get her somewhere Vanessa couldn't touch. But as he entered the living room, he froze. Althea wasn't asleep anymore. She was awake, sitting upright, holding something in her hands. His phone. Her eyes, wide and wounded, flicked up to him. "Who is she to you, Daniel?" His heart sank. "Althea." "Don't." Her voice broke, sharp as glass. She held up the screen. "She knows you're here with me. She talks like you belong to her. And you didn't answer when I asked before. Tell me the truth. Am I just another distraction until you crawl back to her?" The words gutted him. Daniel stepped closer, but she recoiled. "No. It's not like that." "Then what is it?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're still tied to her. You keep saying she's dangerous, that she owns your secrets, but maybe you want to stay tied to her. Maybe you're addicted to the war." Daniel's chest heaved. He wanted to tell her everything, how Vanessa was poison, how he'd been trapped for years, how Althea was the first light he'd seen in a long time. But the words stuck in his throat. All he managed was, "It's complicated." Althea laughed bitterly, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Of course it is. That's what men always say when they're lying." The throw slipped from her shoulders as she stood, trembling. "I should have known better. I should have left when I had the chance." "Althea, please." Daniel reached for her arm. She flinched back as though burned. "Don't touch me." The hurt in her eyes cut deeper than any dagger Vanessa could wield. Daniel stood frozen, his hand suspended in the air, his chest hollow. "You don't understand. I was trying to protect you." "Protect me?" Her voice cracked. "By keeping me in the dark? By letting me fall for a man who still belongs to another woman?" Her words sliced through him. And then she whispered the sentence that nearly broke him. "You're just like my sister's fiancé. Full of promises, but empty when it counts." Daniel's world tilted. He opened his mouth to fight back, to beg her not to compare him to the man who abandoned her family. But she was already at the door, already gone. The echo of the door slamming reverberated through the penthouse like a gunshot. Daniel sank into the nearest chair, his chest aching as if the silence itself had claws. He had fought boardrooms, headlines, even his own past. But losing her, losing Althea, felt like the one battle he had no weapons for. And somewhere across the city, Vanessa smiled in triumph. Do you think Althea was right to walk away after seeing Daniel's messages, or should she have stayed and listened to his explanation? In her shoes, would silence and it's complicated have been enough for you? Share your thoughts in the comments. I really want to hear your perspective. The city was still alive at 3 a.m., but Althea felt hollow as she walked the unfamiliar streets. Her heels pinched, her throat ached, but none of it hurt as much as the look on Daniel's face when she told him not to touch her. She ducked into a late-night cafe, the kind that smelled of burnt coffee and cinnamon. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly as she slid into a booth. Her reflection in the window was pale, streaked with tears she hadn't realized she was still shedding. What had she done? He had given her pieces of himself, the accident, the guilt, the weight of Vanessa's hold. Those weren't stories a man shared lightly. And yet when she asked for the one thing she needed, certainty, he gave her silence. She pressed her palms to her face. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I can't be another woman begging a man to choose her." And yet, her heart ached for him. Meanwhile, across the city, Daniel sat in the dim glow of his penthouse, staring at the untouched glass of water she had left behind. Her laughter still echoed in his mind, soft and real, like a melody he hadn't known he was starved for. Now it was gone. He wanted to chase her, to find her, to tell her every unspoken word. But pride held him still. Pride and fear. Because what if she looked at him and saw only his sins? His father's voice haunted him from years past. "Emotion is weakness, Daniel. Never show them where to strike." But Althea had already struck. And it hadn't killed him, it had made him feel alive. He stood abruptly, pacing. His phone buzzed again. Another message from Vanessa. He ignored it, deleted it, as if erasing her name could erase her hold. He whispered into the silence, "She's not Vanessa. She's not like her. Don't let her go." For the first time in years, Daniel Kingston felt powerless, not in boardrooms, not in headlines, but in love. And for Althea, the cafe walls felt like a cage. She thought of Jamaica, of the ocean at dawn. Her grandmother's words came back, "The sea carries away your burdens if you're ready to let go." She closed her eyes. Maybe this was her sea. Maybe Daniel was the burden she needed to let go of. Or maybe he was the one thing she'd regret leaving behind. The night ticked on, heavy with silence, until both of them faced the same truth. A choice had to be made. Pride or vulnerability. Flight or love. And neither knew if the other was strong enough to reach across the distance. If you were in Daniel or Althea's shoes, what would you choose? Pride to protect yourself from more pain or vulnerability? To risk it all for love? Be real. Which one would win in your heart? Let me know in the comments. The morning light spilled across the city, painting Kingston Tower in shades of gold. Daniel hadn't slept. He stood by the window, phone in hand, scrolling through news headlines he dreaded but expected. Daniel Kingston's mystery woman. Billionaire mogul caught in midnight love triangle. Who is she? Althea's face was already out there. Her name. Her family. Vanessa had made good on her threat. Daniel's jaw tightened. Enough was enough. He grabbed his jacket and strode out, his driver trailing in confusion. But Daniel didn't head for the office. He didn't head for Vanessa. He headed for the one person who mattered. Althea sat on her cousin's porch, her phone buzzing non-stop with calls and texts she couldn't bear to read. Her aunt peeked through the window with worried eyes, but Althea just shook her head. She felt stripped raw, exposed to the world not for who she was, but for being pulled into someone else's war. When a sleek black car pulled into the driveway, her heart clenched. She knew before the door opened. Daniel stepped out. No suit. No entourage. Just a man in a plain white shirt and tired eyes that looked only at her. Althea rose slowly, bracing herself. You shouldn't be here. He walked toward her, unflinching. I should have been here last night. Her throat tightened. What do you want from me, Daniel? Another cover story? Another distraction from her? No. His voice cracked. I want you to hear me, really hear me, without the noise, without Vanessa, without pride. Her arms crossed over her chest, defensive. And if I don't? Then I'll walk away. His eyes softened. But not without telling you what I should have said the first time. The air thickened between them. Daniel took a breath. At that wedding, when I whispered, "Pretend you're with me," it wasn't strategy. It wasn't calculation. It was desperation. Because the moment I saw you sitting there, alone, I wanted you to be mine. Not for the cameras. Not for the headlines. For me. Althea's heart thudded painfully. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I've spent years chained to Vanessa's threats, to my father's legacy, to my own guilt. But last night, when you walked out that door, I realized something. I'd rather lose everything, the company, the money, the empire, than lose the chance to love you honestly. Her eyes blurred with tears. Daniel. As if summoned by the sound of her voice, another car screeched to a halt at the curb. A crimson figure stepped out, Vanessa. Her smile was venom. Touching. Really. But Daniel, darling, you'll never be free of me. Not unless you want the world to know about Michael. Daniel turned, steel in his spine, and for once, no fear in his eyes. Then let them know. Vanessa blinked. What? He straightened, voice carrying across the yard. I killed my best friend. I lived because I was reckless, and he didn't. That's my truth. If the world wants to crucify me for it, let them. But you, he pointed at her, eyes blazing, you don't get to hold it over me anymore. Silence fell like a hammer. Vanessa's mask cracked, fury twisting her features. You'll regret this. No, Daniel said, his voice calm for the first time in years. I'll regret every day I let you own me. He turned his back on her. For the first time. And when his eyes met Althea's, he wasn't a mogul, or a scandal, or a broken man. He was just Daniel. Her tears spilled freely. You'd risk everything for me? He stepped closer, cupping her face gently. Not for you. With you. Because what I want isn't power anymore. It's love. It's you. Her breath hitched, her defenses crumbling. She searched his eyes, looking for lies, for cracks. But all she found was truth, raw and unguarded. And this time, she didn't walk away. She leaned in, their foreheads touching, her whisper trembling but steady. Then don't let me go. Daniel's lips curved into the faintest, most relieved smile. Never. The kiss that followed wasn't perfect. It was messy, salty with tears, shaking with relief. But it was real. It was theirs. For the first time, the chains of their pasts broke. And in their place was something terrifying, beautiful, and new. Love.